All right, John, I guess probably the guy to start with is Jeremiah Smith, only because he's probably at the top of this class in terms of overall interest. Obviously plays a position where it seems like it's become this wide receiver factory. He seems to be the next in line. What's the latest you're hearing or seeing with Jeremiah?
Well, first of all, the latest we're seeing is record numbers. I mean, he had a 300-yard game against an out-of-state team the other day, and it was just the quintessential Jeremiah Smith show. It was like every route in the route tree was pressed and satisfied with the quarterback. I mean, he hit go routes. He worked well underneath. At 6'3", 210 pounds, he was able to go down and get the football on the turf. He played the sideline game, just kind of the entire package on display last Friday for Chaminade Madonna, one of the top teams in high school football. And that's why everything he does has become such a lightning rod recruiting topic, because, of course, longtime commitment to the Ohio State University, and naturally every school closer to home trying to keep him there, whether you talk Miami, Florida, or Florida State. And I think what makes this so interesting is that Jeremiah, I guess, contrary to a lot of recruits, has kind of laid out this plan from the beginning. He said, look, I'm committed to Ohio State. If Brian Hartline is there and Ryan Day is there, I'm probably going to be there, like pretty much no matter what. But college football is crazy. The coaching carousel is crazy. If something does happen, I've got to do some due diligence. And he's certainly done that part. And he's basically gotten to the point now where it's, I'm going to Ohio State or I'm going to stay in the state of Florida. So Miami, Florida, and Florida State all feel like they have some chance, whether it's a puncher's chance or more. They feel increasingly confident that they've got, something to play for with Jeremiah Smith. And when he's the number one skill player in the country, you've got to recruit him anyway. If you're Mario Cristobal, he's right in your backyard. If you're Billy Napier, he's a sign of this is going to help us turn things around. And if you're Mike Norvell, he's a sign of let's keep this thing rolling at Florida State. And Jeremiah has received those messages in a similar light. I think with Miami, it's personal. It's the local school. He's got some teammates committed there. At Florida, he's really close to DJ Lagway, the quarterback commitment headed to Gainesville. So I think that structure is something he likes. And obviously SEC football sells itself. And I think with Florida State, it's about I can be the next. I can kind of maintain this trajectory that FSU is on. But none of that compares to Ohio State. He says it all the time. He's reiterated it, 100 times in the last 6 months, because every, local site is asking about the other schools more so than Ohio State. And he's just like, look, it's first round you, it's wide receiver you. I want to be the next great one there at Ohio State. And you see him make visits to Columbus, and he's standing next to Marvin Harrison Jr., and he's like the same size, if not a little bigger. So you start to see how easy that transition might be for Jeremiah. So I think the ball is still very much in Ohio State's court. It's not over till it's over, until the carousel dust settles, all of that. But again, that's been laid out by Jeremiah from the beginning. And he'll be back in Columbus this weekend. So that's always good to reiterate and reaffirm that verbal commitment status. So fascinating recruitment, but an even better player and person. Very business-like approach from Jeremiah, which to me, it almost helps him double down on Ohio State. He's a business-like kid. I want to go 3 years. I want to go in the first round. I want to do it this way strategically. And that's really the identity of Ohio State offensively over the last, it's becoming like almost the last decade at this point.
I don't want to put you too on the spot, but who does he remind you of? Especially if it could be a comp, to one of Ohio State's previous receivers. Is it a Garrett Wilson type guy? Is it a Chris Olave type guy? I mean, go back as far as you'd like with Ohio State. Who does Jeremiah remind you of?
Yeah, I think physically when he lines up on the outside, you'll probably get more Michael Thomas vibes just from the height, the weight, again, 6'3", 210. But I think once he actually gets going, you see the polish, the route construction. It's it's lofty, but it's going to push you a little bit more towards the Marvin Harrison conversation. I mean, he's got that type of juice. He's got that type of catch radius, body control, all of the things that make you strong in the margins, good to great, great to elite, whatever it is. He's got all of that in spades, and he's already physically about where he needs to be from a height and weight standpoint at the collegiate or even the pro level one day. Down here in South Florida, Julio Jones has been kind of the long-term comparison. And obviously, again, just like Marvin, that's incredibly lofty in any sense. But I get a little bit more Calvin Johnson with him. There's one coach that I'm close with who competes against Jeremiah every year. And he says when he flips a switch, he turns into Megatron. He's got this edge and competitiveness about him that when you kind of you get into him a little bit, he goes harder and just works harder. And then it's really this unstoppable force. But obviously, Marvin, Julio, Calvin, any of those names, even Michael Thomas, I think would satisfy Buckeye Nation and wherever, a Sunday team begins to scout him at.
Not sure if you've had a chance to see Milan Graham very much. Obviously, he's another extremely highly rated kid at wide receiver. And I almost wonder if he is underappreciated a little by Ohio State fans simply because he's in the shadow of what Jeremiah Smith is projected to be. How much should Milan Graham, be appreciated? Because it sure feels like Ohio State's got more than just one guy coming in that could be a huge, huge addition.
Right. And we've seen Ohio State work well with that, right? I mean, we talk about all these great groups that they've had just as much as we talk about the great individual performers. And look, I saw Milan this summer at the Elite 11. He was catching passes for these great quarterbacks, including Aaron Nolan, the Buckeye commitment. And man, I was super impressed. Jeremiah was there as well. So the thought of them together just started, making a lot of folks draw comparisons. Is this Wilson Olave? Is this Smith and Jigba and then someone else? I mean, Milan in his own right, 6'1", 6'2", broad shoulders, kind of that basketball build, but he's got his own set of polish. I think he's twitchy, maybe a little twitchier than Jeremiah, but my main takeaway was his own level of polish from a route running and a hands perspective. He was there at every single step. So I think you're getting a couple of receivers, kind of like last cycle with Carnell Tate, Brandon Ennis, and that group. You're getting a couple of guys who look the part from a height and weight standpoint, but in terms of the intricacies, they're right there as well. So it really is an embarrassment of riches, because in any other class in the country, Milan Graham would be not only the positional headliner, but maybe the overall headliner for a recruiting class as a blue chipper, borderline 5-star for us at Rivals.